Hey y'all, Tara May here. I wanted to go over my book, The Art of the Nasty. This is a collection of the video nasties. The back of the book actually explains a little about exactly what that means. It is a list that was compiled in the UK due to certain laws that were passed. A quick look at the back here. Of course, it's got the picture. And I'm going to go on this. The Art of the Nasty is a unique visual record of a unique visual time. This is the most comprehensive collection of video nasty and pre-certificate video sleeves ever reproduced in one volume. Banned by an act of Parliament after a frenzied and hysterical press campaign, the video nasty was seen as the harbinger of evil and a genuine threat to the fabric of society. The Art of the Nasty reproduces almost 450 pre-certificate video covers in all their lurid glory, including all of the official 39 nasties which were found obscene by the Director of Public Prosecutions. The whole gamut of pre-certificate video sleeves is presented here, from the sleaze epics like Violation of the Bitch, the ludicrous and outrageous SS Experiment Camp, and the gross savagery of Cannibal Holocaust, to the powerful and confrontational image of a rape victim on the front of I Spit on Your Grave. The early video distributor was brash and out for profit, using packaging and marketing techniques reminiscent of the 30s pulps, and video's images was to create its own demise. Provoking reactions of revulsion and disgust in the viewer, these video sleeves were often far more extreme than their films themselves. This book explains that and conveys the media furor, the fear and the rush for the political legislation that greeted the arrival of uncensored horror films in the video of the United Kingdom. Fully revised, updated, and expanded new edition. Now, my mom picked this book up on Amazon for me, actually, over the Christmas holidays. The beginning is a personal view, and it's actually going to go through and explain the events that led up to this list of video nasties, the things that were maybe going on in the media at the time that contributed, stuff like that. And it goes on for several pages. It's very informative. We're going to get to the meat of the book here. The official nasties. This first section is devoted to the ones that did specifically make the list initially. And so we're going to turn the page here, and we're going to be, if I can get it. Alright, immediately hit with images of movies that you're probably familiar with by now, especially if you watch video nasties. The Beast is a fun one. It's really called Anthropophagus most commonly. And I also believe the Grim Reaper might be another working title for that, but that's a very cut version of it. These people on a Greek island run across this cannibal, and it can get pretty gory at times in that one. The Beast in Heat, I actually have that as SS Hellcamp, people doing experiments, Nazis doing experiments, of course. Kind of has this sex beast they created. It's literally, screwing the women to death. Blood Feast is in there. That's a Herschel Gordon Lewis film. Pretty notorious. Cannibalism also. We got Bloody Moon. The Burning, a fun camp film. Has an early performance by Jason Alexander in that. A lot of teens, teen cast. Probably not the most commercial of the camp movies that you're probably most familiar with. Of course, Friday the 13th or even Sleepaway Camp. But The Burning was another one of those fun camp movies that kind of scare you off. Blood Rights. And sometimes they do have duplicate covers. They have a lot of little write-ups and stuff. It'll tell you the year the movie was released and stuff like that. Also a note, off to the side, they tell you things that were going on at that time in Britain, for those that are interested in that. We got Cannibal Holocaust. If you have not seen this film, I would urge you to do so, but be warned, there are actual animal deaths. This is probably one of the most brutal and most known cannibal movies out there. It's probably the best one. Most of these cannibal movies from back then is, of course, what inspired Eli Roth's Green Inferno. This one also, people say Blair Witch kind of ripped on this one. It's teenagers that go out in the woods and don't come back and just their film is discovered. But it certainly is not like the Blair Witch in any other way. Cannibal Ferox is another one. It's a good one to follow up Cannibal Holocaust with. Don't Go in the Woods Alone. That actually, I did not find that super gory, and it can be a little slow, definitely lower budget film, but it's pretty fun. You're not going to see another film with a guy in a wheelchair taking a hike. And the movie itself, I actually have that, and one of the extras, the guy that actually played the hiker in the wheelchair during his death scene, was previewing this movie in the theater, And he laughed at his own scene, and somebody next to him said, "How would you like that if that were you?" Not knowing they were even sitting next to that actor. So that was some pretty fun trivia there. Of course, we got movies like Devil Hunter, Cannibal Man, Driller Killer, another fun one, maybe a little artsy at times. A lot of people have probably seen that one. Evilspeak. Now this is a good movie. Clint Howard, who was the younger brother of Ron Howard, he actually plays sort of a nerd that is in a military school, gets picked on quite a bit. He's down cleaning the church basement, runs across sort of a Satanist book, and decides to put the information into his computer and thus conjures a demon, kind of does a spell, turns himself into a demon, and gets a pretty brutal revenge, and it is definitely one I would recommend seeing. I actually have this movie, and Scream Factory has actually released this on Blu-ray. Faces of Death. That one, there are some real images in this movie, I've always been told, but there's also a lot of pretty cleverly faked ones. And the whole series really is worth checking out at least once, but of course there are some that are better than others. And a lot of the first one is actually a lot of surgeries and stuff in that one. Of course we got Andy Warhol's Frankenstein, also known as Flesh for Frankenstein. Noting there, it's a pretty good movie. Recently tweeted about that one. We're gonna skip now. I Spit on Your Grave is probably one of the most notorious ones. Woman brutally raped by a bunch of guys in a small town where she goes to relax and have a vacation. And she gets a pretty good revenge on these guys. I would recommend it, but some scenes probably are going to make you uncomfortable and want to turn away. Or at least I should hope so, because it is pretty realistic. We've got House on the Edge of the Park, another sort of rape revenge. David Hess is in that one, and it shows a scene in the beginning of a girl getting raped in the back of a car. David Hess and his friend, they sort of go out to this place they're invited to with these rich people, and it turns out that they're out for some revenge because this was the one guy's sister. Island of Death. This movie has everything from bestiality, incest, homosexuality, and a lot of clever deaths. Maybe not the best done film, but it's actually pretty unique and worth checking out. Another one for I Spit on Your Grave. Last House on the Left. A lot of you probably remember that one. The whole, to avoid fainting, say it's only a movie. A girl is celebrating her 16th birthday, winds up in a pretty bad situation with some people that are actually ex-convicts. She ends up, and her friend getting brutally raped, and then she sort of washes up at her parents'. I don't really want to spoil much, but of course it is a revenge film, so you kind of get the idea if you haven't seen it by now. Alright. Ending that section is movies like Zombie Flesh Eaters, and of course I skipped a few pages because really y'all should pick up this book for yourself. Zombie Flesh Eaters, of course, also known as Zombie. Tenebrae. The Werewolf and the Yeti. Now Zombie Flesh Eaters, I'm sorry, I have a bit of a cold here. It's a pretty good zombie flick, one of the best ones. Lucio Fulci, of course, and a lot of people are pretty familiar with it. It came out in 1979, which is the year I was born, so that got a bonus right there for me. And I would definitely try to find the uncut version. It's got some good scenes of an eye gouging. Definitely worth checking out. So our next section is going to be Nasties on Parole. These are the ones at the OPP. 33 films. Director of Public Prosecution failed to convict. So these ones say didn't get a conviction. We've got another cannibal movie here, Cannibal Terror. The Beyond, most of you are pretty familiar with that, another Fulci film. A movie called The Boogeyman. Not one of my personal faves, but a lot of people seem to really like this one. Dead and Buried. That one is actually a pretty unique film, and I would definitely suggest checking that one out. Sort of a zombie flick, I guess, but not quite traditional way. A lot of people winding up dead, but they kind of come back, different. This one here, known as Death Trap in the UK, this is Tobe Hooper's follow-up film to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it's called Eaten Alive in the US. Arrow Video has, of course, released this one. And it's pretty good. It's sort of based on Joe Ball, who would feed people to his alligators. And it has Marilyn Burns in it, who played the survivor or final girl in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I just wanted to show this cool cover of The Evil Dead. This is also in one of my other books that I had on here, and I just think it's worth a second look. Don't Go in the House. That is another good one I would suggest watching. This man's taking people, and he's kind of got this whole suit he puts on, and he burns them up, and I don't want to give too much away, but it's a pretty good film. Alright. Moving on to our next section. Nasties, the ones that got away. Serious nasties that avoided prosecution by the DPP, Director of Public Prosecutions. Abducted. Cataclysm. City of the Living Dead. Kind of surprised by that one. I'll skip again. And I just want to show that there is an Ilsa film in here that escaped it. The Harem Keeper to the Oil Sheiks, which I actually watched that the other day, and I am surprised that that one wasn't put on the list, because while maybe it doesn't have the most gore in it, it was pretty lewd at times. There's a woman that gets her boobs squished by a press, and that's, you know, something to see. Pink Flamingos. This has to be one of the most out there movies. There is a scene of Divine following a poodle around, picking up its poop and putting it in her mouth. These people are trying to out-nasty each other. You're going to see a hermaphrodite, a guy running around with sausages tied to his unit, all kinds of things in this movie. A scene with a chicken that should not be missed. And they did say that the chicken was enjoyed very much, cooked and eaten after the scene. So, yeah. The Naples Connection. Mark of the Devil. A lot of you are familiar with that one. Skipping again. And we're going to see that one of the ones that got away actually was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Most people seem to think that this is a very gory movie, but if you actually watch it, there is very little blood in this movie. Even the commentary will tell you that. But regardless of that, it is pretty good. And also, upon watching the commentary, one of the scenes where they're trying to cut her finger for Grandpa to suck on, we're talking about Marilyn Burns' character, of course, they really did have to cut her finger because their prop thing, it wouldn't work, the special effect didn't come off, and so she actually was in some pain and upset there during that scene. That wasn't even just acting. Nice and Sleazy does it. This section's exactly what it sounds like. Not nasty and certainly not pretty. The sleaze epics from the halcyon days of pre-certificate heaven. And you're going to have movies in here like fairy tales, adult fairy tales, that is. We got this one, Adventures of a Teenage Tramp. Aphrodisiac. The Best of Sex and Violence. And this one is another one that if you go on Full Moon website, you can find that under their Grindhouse titles. Actually, I'm considering getting that just to check that movie out because I personally haven't seen that one. Excuse me, y'all. Trying not to do that. Watch Devil's Nightmare for probably the 4th or 5th time again the other day. This one's about a succubus, 7 sins, 7 strangers in a German baron's house. Pretty unique, and it's a pretty good, well-paced film. I would definitely recommend checking that one out. You can actually find that, I believe it's called The Devil Walks at Midnight by the other title, on Amazon Prime right now. If you want to check that out, you have Amazon Prime. Of course, we got some Chesty Morgan deadly weapons. And I don't know if you remember, going back to John Waters, but his Serial Mom movie, the one kid that works in the video store, he's the son, of course, of Serial Mom. His best friend, at some point, they walk in on him and he has a Chesty Morgan movie on, and that was pretty funny. So John Waters obviously was a fan of that. Alright. Skipping ahead here past the sleaze to one of interest in this Nice and Sleazy Does It called Let Me Die a Woman. And it boasts, all true, all real, see a man become a woman before your eyes. This is actually in part a documentary, apparently. I have, again, not actually seen this, but thought that was pretty much worth a mention. The last horror film, that actually has Joe Spinell from Maniac in it. And Carolyn Monroe, who some of you may know, she also played in Slaughter High as the final girl. Well, would-be final girl if he really had killed them all. Of course, who wouldn't want to check out at least once a movie about a pussy that talks? That's right, I actually had to say it. It is called Pussy Talk. Pretty funny. SS Girls. They have a lot of sleeves in this one, folks. A lot of sleeves. Several pages. Starlet. Take an Easy Ride. Sorry about the bad camera angles, y'all. I really am new to video. Alright. Finally past that. We got The Good, the Bad, and the Vomit-Inducing. The best of the rest, an eye-watering selection of particularly noteworthy pre-cert video releases. And I'm just going to skip a few pages here. We got The Cannibals, Cemetery of the Living Dead, Circus of Horrors, Cannibals, The Corpse Grinders, Humanoids, Dark Night of the Scarecrow. I actually saw this when I was a kid when it came on TV. This is an old TV movie that people have been begging for release. I believe they are releasing one. About a man who gets convicted, well, not really convicted so much as blamed for the death of a young child, and pretty much gets lynched. And he comes back for some revenge in the guise of a scarecrow, and is definitely worth checking out. Don't Answer the Phone. This one actually can be found on multi-packs quite often by Mill Creek, and it's pretty good. It can be slow maybe for some, but definitely worth checking out if you're into that sort of thing. Die Sister Die. Drive-In Massacre. Most of you have probably seen that movie. That one's definitely pretty good. And here we got Andy Warhol's Dracula, also with Udo Kier, also called Blood for Dracula. Actually tweeted about this one recently. He goes to an Italian farmhouse in search of a virgin bride, runs across a family that boasts 4 virgin daughters, but he actually winds up having to figure out which one really is a virgin because they're awful friendly with the help. E.T. in what's 12 inches tall and eats people. Haven't actually seen that, but thought that was kind of funny. Equinox. Female Trouble, another one with Divine by John Waters. Hills Have Eyes. That is definitely worth checking out. The original, not the remake, although there are some scenes practically recreated in the remake. It definitely lacks the raw force that The Hills Have Eyes had. I mean, you could actually imagine getting stranded. And this story actually always makes me think of the real story of Sonny Bean. Lived out in the hills with all of his incestuous children and was sleeping with them, making more kids, stuff like that. Just showing you some more of these great pictures. I really recommend picking up this book, y'all. It almost could even be a wish list if you ever want to set out to watch all the Video Nasties. I definitely have found some titles in here I wanted to check out. Here we got Nightmare City, Moonchild, Master of the Flying Guillotine. And I wish I was better at video, y'all, but really this is like my 6th one, I guess. And I'm really just using my phone right now. I don't have a proper camera. Suspiria. You know, I had to highlight that because it was in here. Dario Argento's Suspiria, probably one of his most famous movies. And, of course, it's part of his trilogy. I'm not going to say a lot about it because you really just have to watch it. The Switchblade Sisters. Jack Hill. He did Spider Baby, which is pretty good, and Pit Stop, but he also did movies like Foxy Brown and Coffee. Some of those women in prison, and his movies are always fun. I have enjoyed every one of the ones that I have watched. And Switchblade Sisters is definitely one of his best ones. We got Zombies Lake. Some of you's probably seen that. Some of you might not have, but it's worth a check out. And of course the appendix, the video company listings, that's actually going to go through and tell you who has released these things. or, you know, re-release them, stuff like that. It's got a bibliography, so it's a pretty in-depth book. And again, I'll give you another look at some of this information. It actually will tell you, you know, about how it got on some of the lists and stuff like that. Sample with Zombies Lake, you know, it'll tell you the original title, even if it was, you know, foreign and you can't pronounce it. Tell you what year it was released, stuff like this. It'll actually tell you, book slide, I'm sorry. I don't know how good of a view you can get on my camera phone, but it says, amazingly, this ramshackle Spanish-French Eurocine co-production needed 2 directors to finish it. Modern Films, an offshoot of the Mountain label, issued a soft cut of the movie. A stronger version featured nude underwater swimming, re-released uncut British DVD 2004 by Arrow Films. So I wanted to highlight some of those movies for you. I wanted to show you some of these great pictures. This is a really awesome book. It is by Fab Press. And while this is technically maybe more paying homage to things from Europe, I actually think it's very fascinating even for Americans to know about this. Alright, well this video has been a little over 20 minutes, and I'm sorry for the maybe bad shots and shaky camera angles. I hope you can bear with me because it really is a fascinating book and I just had to go over it with you. Alright, till next time, y'all.